So, Adrian, did you ever watch the Baz Luhrmann Romeo and Juliet movie with Leonardo DiCaprio and Claire Danes?
Yes.
So, did you know that the makeup person, I have the name here, by the name of Maurizio Silvi, was kidnapped by bandits during the filming of the movie and was held for ransom?
How much?
The hairstylist Aldo Signoretti was kidnapped. Then the makeup artist took the ransom outside the hotel and threw the bag of money toward the kidnappers, and the kidnappers threw Signoretti out of the car, breaking his leg in the process. The ransom was $300.
Wow.
That just feels like a waste of everyone's time for that much
Yeah,
money.
I feel like you can do a lot of different things for $300.
I do think this is funny. It says the director was not present for the kidnapping and ransom, but said he thought $300 was a bargain. Anywho, welcome back to The Drive Back. My name is Garrett.
And I'm Adrian.
And on today's episode, we've got a bit of a mix-up with a bunch of different things. We've got a little bit of a phone a friend, we got a little bit of first-timers, a little bit of back-to-back. So, you want to explain what we're doing?
Sure. A friend of Garrett's, Mark, recommended these two movies, which neither of us have seen. So this will be our first time watching them, and they have the same name and are reiterations of each other, so they are back-to-back as well. So that's why we got all three here.
That is absolutely right, and the movie, or movies, in question is The Thomas Crown Affair. There is both the 1968 original and the 1999 remake. So let's just go ahead and dive right into the original, which is, oddly enough, called The Thomas Crown Affair. Released in 1968, it was directed by Norman Jewison and stars Steve McQueen, Faye Dunaway, and Paul Burke. A debonair, adventuresome bank executive believes he has pulled off the perfect multi-million-dollar heist, only to match wits with a sexy insurance investigator who will do anything to get her man. It won an Oscar for Best Original Song for Windmills of Your Mind, and was nominated for Best Original Score.
Wow.
Now, let's go ahead and get some quick spoiler-free thoughts out of the way first, and then we'll dive into what we think, a little bit more spoilery. What did you think? It was both of our first time, I believe.
Yes.
As we've gone over.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I really liked the plot of both of these movies, actually. I think they're super interesting. I think it's a great mix of, like, James Bond versus, like, Ocean's 11, kind of like bank heist stuff. I just love the kind of niche that it does try to pull. This one doesn't pull it as well as I think I might have wanted. The twist at the very, very end, like the kind of big final move that happens, does really sell a lot of this movie for me. I think it really adds a lot of depth to the character and just kind of really establishes a baseline for everything that's happened, and it really ties it together with a nice bow. So don't think it was as good as I think I wanted it to be, but it does have a pretty good ending and some fun stuff along the way.
Sure. I kind of have to disagree just a little bit. I think it's a little bit boring, a little bit dry. The plot, I think, gets better with the second movie, but we'll talk about that when we get there. And just for me, this is a very ugly movie. It doesn't look very good at all, and the music is awful. Which we can go ahead and drop a spoiler warning. If you want to watch the original Thomas Crown Affair, it is available to stream nowhere. You have to rent it, unfortunately. So that's just the way that it is. But diving into some spoilers, yeah, the music and the ugliness are the two things that I kind of want to talk about most of this movie. The music is sporadic.
Yeah, it's very, it sounds like an ensemble falling apart. Like, literally, if you, like, were to, like, play timpanis falling down a stairs, that's the kind of feeling that it gives.
Like, just the random tones and genres of music just doesn't fit well. And this is one of the many times I can safely say that the Academy got it wrong. That the Best Original Song was awful in this movie.
What was it? The Windmills of Your Mind?
Windmills of Your Mind, which plays during the ever wonderful glider sequence in this movie that made no sense except for showing us that Steve McQueen is rich. And just like it sounds like Bob Dylan whining into the microphone the entire time, and it's just the windmills of your mind. Like, it's just super annoying. And it goes on for way too long.
Yeah, that scene is pretty substantial. It's like a whole
Yeah.
act of the film almost in and of itself.
Like, I imagine in the writer's room, they're like, all right, we got this music video for Windmills of Your Mind. What else are we going to do? We need, like, another hour and 45 minutes. And it's like,
That was the whole thing.
it's like, okay, cool. Yeah, it just was awful. And getting more into the ugliness of it, the weird split screens and just the overuse of them. Like,
Yeah,
it's J.J. Abrams and lens flares kind of meme worthy with this movie.
Absolutely, yeah. You'll get a taste if you clicked on the thumbnail for this video on YouTube.
Yeah.
I tried to embody it, but yeah, I mean, there's shots that have upwards of 8 shots at the same time going on.
Yeah.
With like a scene of him like sitting in a car, and then one scene of the car handle, and then another one of like him closer up sitting in the car. Like, just so many different shots. It's ridiculous.
It's like the technology must have been new at the time or something, and the director, Norman Jewison, was just like, I want to use it all the time.
Yeah, it's one of those things they didn't think about whether they should just because they had the technology, right? It's just terrible.
Yeah, it literally like Jurassic Park. They couldn't. They wouldn't stop thinking if they could. They didn't stop to think if they should, right?
Yeah.
But the worst, it culminates in the worst possible sequence of this movie, which is the polo match, which goes on for way too long. Uses like literally at like split screens during the first half of the game. Then there's a break, and then it goes into the game again, and it's back in split screen with horrible music, and it's painful.
Yeah, it definitely feels very disjointed and discombobulated for sure, but I do want to talk about that. I do like the idea of the film. Like, I like the concept of somebody stealing just for the fun of it with zero need to the actual heist.
Yeah.
Like, nothing needs to happen. They're doing it solely for fun. And I do find that really neat that people do it for just the thrill of it. And this movie tries to. The second one does it a little better. Spoiler on my thoughts, but this one, I do find the concept interesting. And especially the end, now that we're past spoilers, when he basically says, like, he vanishes and he says, keep the money or come find me, basically. And as he takes off in a jet, it's like one final switcheroo because the chase is never over, kind of thing. And I thought that was pretty good.
Yeah, and we had talked about this before, that this kind of movie should be remade, and I believe there is a project in the pipeline with Michael B. Jordan attached.
Yep.
And we had talked about this before, that we should potentially see a remake, and I actually have changed my mind. I think that, you know, especially with today's kind of social climate, I don't think we want to have another movie where it's just someone flaunting how rich they are. And the fact that they can get away, like, consequence-free, whereas someone who is, like, of a lower class or lower income level would get punished more severely.
But maybe that's the twist on it, is that they don't get away this time.
Maybe. They get the... That sounds like a Hays Code movie from the 40s, though. This man stole it. Now he has to go to prison. That's what happens. Don't steal. But, yeah, I mean, like, the plot is very interesting. I think, like you said, spoiler for the second one, I think the second one does it a little bit better.
Yeah.
Not even a little bit. It does it better.
It adds a couple more dynamics to kind of what this movie presents as a very basic version of the concept.
Yeah.
The second one definitely adds some more layers and makes it a little more interesting and more fun to watch all the way around. So, yeah, didn't find this one too much to write home about. I would definitely skip this one. If you're going to pick one of the two, skip this one.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. But I do want to highlight some of the things that I think are good. I do like the leads in this movie. I do think Steve McQueen... This is kind of the first movie where Steve McQueen's been in that I've been like, okay, yeah, I enjoy him as an actor. We watched him in Bullet, and he was take it or leave it, except for the driving sequences. He was fantastic.
Of course, yeah.
And then I watched him in that the 50s The Blob movie, and he was not good in that. So, like, I was kind of like, I wasn't going to go, and then he was fine in this one. Faye Dunaway, spoiler for the second one, I think she's a much better, I guess, romantic interest character.
Interesting. I don't. That'll be interesting.
Which we'll get to that. But also, there's a really cool chess game match, and I don't think I've ever seen, you know, maybe except for like Queen's Gambit, seen chess made more like sexy or interesting than that. And just the way that they were able to kind of get away with the flirting in the 60s, like she's moving her dress so it kind of shows off a little bit of her, you know, her chest, and it's just like for the 60s, it felt super ahead of its time. Even if there were a couple of split screen cuts here and there. But,
yeah, of a chess match.
Yeah.
Like, what? How much movement is happening in a chess match that you have to see multiple versions.
I need 16 angles of a pawn moving forward 1 square. But yeah, that's pretty much it with this movie. Like you said, I think it's skippable, but let's go ahead and jump into some final thoughts and some scores. Adrian, if you want to lead us away.
Yeah, so I know that I've given this movie a score. I think we talked about it before. I don't remember what that was, so I'm just going to go ahead and give it a score that I feel like it is.
I have the score if you'd like for me to...
Oh, you wrote it down. Okay, yeah. Sure. Yeah, what did I give it?
So, we've had to re-record this, and I think we should let the cat out of the bag because I'm a moron. You gave it a 52. So has that changed?
I was going to give it a higher score this time. So
okay.
I'll give it... So I was gonna in my main head, as opposed to my other one, in my main head, I guess I was gonna give this a 60 right now, just based off memory. But because of that, I'll just round out at a 55.
Okay, gotcha. Unlike you, my score has not changed. I think that it's a very dry, boring, and at times ugly film that, aside from its charismatic leads, doesn't really feel all that interesting or necessary. I gave it a 40. So. Nice. Jumping into the sequel, or not sequel, it's the remake. I don't know why I said sequel. 1999, directed by John McTiernan. Same director as Die Hard and Predator, which we've covered both of those on the channel.
Yep.
It stars Pierce Brosnan, Rene Russo, and Denis Leary. A very rich and successful playboy amuses himself by stealing artwork, but may have met his match in a seductive detective. That's 2 ifs right in a row. That was kind of hard to read. I'll start out. I think this one is a much better improvement over the original. I think Pierce Brosnan is more charismatic. Maybe it's because I like him better from James Bond, and this kind of feels an extension of that character. And the idea, the fact that it's an artwork thing is much more interesting.
Absolutely.
Not getting into spoilers with that, I don't think. But as far as spoiler-free, what do you think about the remake? I know you've already kind of said that you like it better.
Yeah, I just think it adds a lot more texture to the plot in a really neat way. I think it's a lot more engaging. I think it takes something... Like, I think the first one focuses solely on, like, money and just the monetary value of the dollar bill and, like, very flat, plain kind of heist. This one takes it a little bit more into a different direction in terms of valuing different things and puts it into a different setting that's a lot more engaging. It feels a lot more like Ocean's 11 kind of feel. It feels more like a larger heist with multiple pieces moving, like a bigger chess game, to relate it to the last one. And that's just more exciting to me. So
sure. And one of the things that was important with both these movies that I feel like was better in the first one and less so in this one, and that you think the opposite, is the chemistry between the 2 leads. Yeah. I think it is worse in this movie, particularly just because I didn't enjoy Rene Russo's performance. But I know you have a differing opinion on that.
Yeah, I thought it was fine. I definitely sensed that there was some sort of connection between them and that they liked each other, and I thought it was great.
Gotcha. Also, to mention the much more steamy romance scenes in this movie.
Staircase, of course. Can't leave the staircase.
Not just a staircase. This is like a marble staircase. That thing is hard.
Yeah.
They're like scoliosis is like the least of their concerns after that. I mean, geez Louise. But yeah, I mean, other than that, I think that it is more fun. It's a little bit more interesting. At least I was more thoroughly engaged the whole time, even if it wasn't necessarily the best movie ever. Yeah. I think we also should mention that Denis Leary was much better than Paul Burke as the detective character.
Yeah, that's not something we really talked about, but in the first one, I hated that guy. That guy made no sense to me.
Yeah, it's like, oh, well, can we get a deal for hitting... No, there's no deal! We have to get him into jail! Again, echoing the Hays Code type stuff. Yeah. But yeah, just super annoying, that one. And at least it's Denis Leary this time, who is always fun to have around in a movie.
Much more believable, for sure.
Oh, easily. Yeah, 100%. Yeah. And there are callbacks to the original in this one. There's still the golf sequence where he bets an exorbitant amount of money. There's still the glider sequence, although it's a little bit different in this one. There's no windmills of your mind, so that's an immediate
win
boost.
Absolutely.
I mean,
huge plus.
I mean, give this the Oscar. And it didn't even have an original song. But yeah, I mean, that's really about it. It's a fun and a more engaging film than the first one. I've heard from some people, including Mark, who requested both these movies, that they're kind of on even playing fields. That they do like each one does some things better than the original, or better than the other. Excuse me.
I would disagree with that a little bit. I don't think that they're on equal levels.
Yeah, I think from what I've seen from the critics' opinion online is that most people think that the remake with the 1999 one was not something we needed at all, but was kind of glad we got. And I think that's probably the best way to describe it. We didn't need this, but it was nice to have it. It's just not something I don't think I would watch again.
Yeah.
So that being said, we'll go ahead and dive into some final thoughts and some scores. I thought that the remake is better shot, it's more interesting and more fun than its predecessor, and the performances are good too, save for Rene Russo, who I did not enjoy, and there doesn't seem for me to be as good a chemistry between the two leads as there was in the first one. So with that, I gave the movie a 69.
Nice. Yeah, I gave this movie a 70.
Yeah, you did. Look at that.
Hey, still on track. Yeah, I gave this movie a 70. I think, like I said, I think it does a lot of really good things. I love the heist stuff. I did feel the connection between the characters. I liked a lot of kind of just what they did with the movie. It felt a little more lively. Pierce Brosnan did a great job, I thought. And definitely, I know it was like the Bond era, but he definitely brought a different twist to the character, which was really, really awesome to see. Not quite like just another Bond movie. It was kind of its own whole thing. So yeah, because I gave it a 70, it's much better than the first one. If you're going to watch either of them, this is definitely the one to watch. But I also don't really get like the huge hype around this franchise. I'd be interested to see another one and have a new spin taken on it, whether that be with like cryptocurrency or like multiple heists going on at once, or like let's step it up another notch. I'd be interested to see something like that.
Steal some NFTs.
Yeah.
I hit control copy when I was looking at it. Oh, I'm such a rogue.
But that's not how NFTs work, Garrett.
I use snipper clips, and I just cut it out of the thing I saw. Anyhow, but that's going to bring us to an end for this episode. Adrian, if there is anyone out there who's not following us yet, where can they do that?
The Drive Back Podcast on any platform. So any of your podcasting apps, go ahead and follow us there. Give us a rating. 5 stars, get you a shout out on the podcast. YouTube at the Drive Back Podcast. Like, subscribe. We post every Monday, as well as extra content only here on YouTube. And on Instagram at the Drive Back Podcast. Go ahead and chat with us. Let us know if you want us to watch a movie.
That is absolutely correct. Next week, well, for us it's in a couple days, but next week's episode is going to be a first-timers. We're going to be taking a look at The Deep House, which is a movie that you recommended.
Excited. Yeah.
I'll be watching that sometime this coming week. As I would hope we would, because we have to review it. So hopefully it is at least somewhat as interesting as the title makes it seem. So I know nothing about it. I'm going in completely blind.
You have no idea what the synopsis at all?
I imagine it is. It has to do with our friend Griffin, friend of the show, who has a very deep voice, and I imagine it's him buying a house for the first time.
That's it. Yeah.
Okay,
we made a documentary.
Crap! I can't watch it anymore. Anyhow, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. We love you so much. We'll see you next week here on The Drive Back. Thank you for listening to this episode of The Drive Back. Make sure to be on the lookout for new episodes every Monday, and make sure to follow us on social media.